Hi, I'm Dave Robinson, and welcome to another screencast where I'll be using R and RStudio to analyze data I've never seen before. As usual, the data comes from the Tidy Tuesday project, an amazing weekly data project in R from the R for Data Science online learning community. Let's see what data we have this week. All I know about it is that it's a data set about a historical phone adoption. So it comes from rworldandData.org, and we can, I can get mobile and landline adoption. I'll bring it in with a Tidy Tuesday R package. In fact, I will use I will use Tidy Tuesday R, use Tidy template, and get a new file. Here we go. What I tend to start with is do library scales, theme set, theme light. Some things I like to start with. Load in the data. Looks like there's two data sets, mobile and landline. Okay, we've got it by country. I love data that's by country, means we might make a map today. We have TT mobile, we have TT landline. All right, and so these are, let's just see this. These are on top of each other. They're like, you can probably stack them together, mobile subs, landing subs, or you can stack them, or you can, just thinking through this a second, or you can, what's the word I'm looking for? Join them together. I think I'm going to stack them, but first let's read through the documentation on what these mean. Subs is subscriptions per 100 people, so it's like a percentage. This means less than 1 in 100 people have a landline subscription, fixed telephone subscriptions. All right, and we also have population, GDP per capita. That's great because otherwise I would have been joining that data in, but now I can hopefully I can trust this population GDP per capita data. I have continents. That's really quite a bit to work with. Okay, so first thing, I'm going to try combining these together. I'm just going to call it phones, and I'm going to do it as bind rows TT mobile, and I need two things there. I'm actually going to do it like this. I'm going to rename subs is mobile subs. I'm going to call it mobile. And then I'm going to do mutate type equals mobile. And I'm going to do the same thing to the landline. See, what I did is I changed that name to just like, I'll just call it subscriptions, why not? And I'll do something similar to the landline. Check that out, okay, landline. And the phones is the combination of those two data sets. Did I miss any differences between those tables? Yeah, I did. I just mixed up here. This and this, subscriptions, landline subs. I don't know what was going on, but this is now fixed. What's working is I can say, okay, I can look at Afghanistan. It looks like I only have GDP per capita for some rows, not others. Yeah, it looks like I might only, I have GDP per capita for some countries, not others. That's worth knowing. And then I look at mobile and landline separately. Okay, so what would I do? But I've got these combined together, and that's nice because I might want to make a graph. Let's say I live in the United States. If I filter for entity is United States, yeah, it is, of America. And I'm also gonna, I'm gonna rename, I just kind of like to shape the data the way that makes the most intuitive sense to me. Country and code, all right. And I can graph year, subscriptions, color equals type. And that's why I wanted to do, country. That's why I wanted to put them into one so I could compare them. Look at that, all right. Whoa, so this was for 100 people. This is suggesting the average American has more than one cell phone subscription. Does that feel right to you? Like, I certainly expect something about this jump past 100 does seem a little bit odd to me. I mean, maybe it's possible a person can absolutely have more than one more than one mobile solution, but the average person having more than one, when some people surely don't have any, it seems a little surprising. But if I do descending subscriptions, yeah, so some have 322 per, is it per, it's per 100 people. Fixed telephone subscriptions per 100 people. Huh. Some country, Hong Kong, has multiple per person. I mean, maybe there's I guess maybe burner phones are a thing. It seems a little bit, it does seem a little bit strange that so many countries are above 100. Does it seem strange to anyone else? Maybe if anyone wants to take a look into that, go for it. But I'll stick with it for now. One thing that it definitely makes sense to me is that landlines hit their peak somewhere around 2000 and then start declining. I haven't had a landline phone since I graduated high school in 06. Which, look at that, that was around where the crossover point was. And yeah, then, okay, so I can look at like mobile or a landline for each of these. Let me look at a couple other countries while I'm at it. So look at China, okay, yeah, like, so China never really crossed the point where lots of people had landlines. And this is actually really interesting. Is I have a feeling if we did some kind of clustering, if we did some analysis like these, like I bet we would see there are some countries where there were lots of used to be landlines, and then mobile phones took them over, and then other countries that where landlines never quite fully took off. China, there were more landlines than mobile. I have a feeling if we look at African nations, let's look at say Sudan. You can see that landlines never got that common, whereas mobile phones became very common. So this is going to be, I think, like a lot of what we're going to look at is what countries skipped to mobile, like didn't have a lot of landline. I think it's a really interesting question, and how does that differ based on continent? Well, we have continent over there, so let's ask that. Here's what I'm going to do. We have come to this data, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to try, I still don't understand why so many things go above 100. It's a little bit odd to me. But what I'm going to do is, wow, all right, thanks. So Data Digest has checked and said that 83 million people have 107 million mobile contracts. There are more mobile contracts than people in some first world countries. I didn't expect it, but that's interesting. I think maybe just most of my friends, we all have one, but I guess there's lots of people that have work phones. All right, it's totally plausible. All right, that's really interesting. So what we do is we say year, subscriptions, geom, line, and we do color. Check this out. We can do something like color equals type, group equals the interaction of type and country. What this does is it plots every single country on one. So here we get like a general sense of trend is okay, like all the landline frequencies stayed fairly low, but mobile generally shows up and grows quickly. Now this is way too many. This is too many graphs, too many like points. So one of the things we can do is we could filter down to a random subset of countries. We could also filter down to the most populated countries. If we do that, we're going to have to pick something like most populated countries average across this time period. So I could do something like group by country, summarize average population, because some are going to grow, some are going to shrink. And ARM is true. Arrange descending average population. Well, the general sense is at least here I can just say, okay, these are some of the biggest countries in the world, and say country sizes. And then I can create this graph, but do something like this. I can say semi-join on country sizes, top n 10 by average population. So for the 10 largest countries in the world, what do the trends look like? This way, at least, I get to avoid ones that might have a lot of noise. yeah, so and to kind of see like, okay, what's the overall pattern? And the answer is these countries like uh, yeah, let's take a quick look at this. Okay, the general story is that, like, yes, mobile goes up over time, landline stays steady or hits a decline. Yeah, so we can see like, okay, some go up and down, some just go up. Let's get a little bit more of a sense of this by faceting by continent. So check this out. I can actually facet wrap by continent because we have continent this data helpfully. And if I do that, I'm probably going to want some more countries. Okay, so now what I'm looking at is like I'm going to do top 40. Sure. Okay. What I can see there is that in Africa, generally none of these are the largest countries. None of the largest countries in Africa ever got past about 20 landline subscriptions per person, but mobile explodes around like 2000, 2005, 2010. So you can see this kind of like, okay, when does mobile, like, there's kind of two questions here. There's a couple components. It's like, when does landline peak? When does mobile, so there's like, when does landline peak? When does mobile take off? Even where does mobile peak is kind of interesting, though I don't know if we're going to see a lot from it. Right, so I've got a couple questions that I wanted to answer. Where somebody asked, what does the interaction function do? It's a great question. So what I had to do, interaction of type and country. How come? Well, what if I just said the group is the type? What happens now is it graphed every single country it tries to put under one line. That's not a good graph. That shows the distribution at each point in time, but I actually wanted to see the trends. So that doesn't work. I could say, oh no, the group is the country. But if I do that, ooh, it's even worse. Check out this little bit of modern accidental art. What happens is it's doing one line for each country, but it jumps between the type and the country. Interaction, if I applied to group and country, if I said like interaction of 1 to 3 and A, B, C, it comes up with like, oh, it's 1.A, 2.B, 3.C. It pastes the two together. I actually could have done it a couple different ways, but interaction makes very clear what I'm doing. Where I say interaction, type, and country, and now give every individual combination of type and country its own line. So these are for the largest countries. For the largest countries in the world, we see like, okay, Africa has to take off, Americas, Asia, Europe. This is one way to visualize it. I also could have said group by year and continent and visualize it from that point. Group by year and continent, summarize average subscriptions. At that point, I wouldn't need color equals type. Year continent type. What I'm doing is I want to aggregate by, here we go, year continent type. I'll need to say filter not is NA subscriptions. Average subscriptions, here we go. And color type, and still facet by continent. And look at me and forgetting a parenthesis somewhere. There is that missing parenthesis. And yeah, so this actually can show, this is pretty good. What this is showing is like the average trend across each country. It actually looks pretty smooth. This is pretty neat. And you know, I can actually get like bounds for this, like what are the quantiles within each. If I do a summarize and say Q25 is quantile subscriptions 0.25, Q75. I could have done this with the box plot too. There are a few ways to do it. 0.75. And I can throw in a geom ribbon. Geom ribbon, AES Y min is the 25th percentile, Y max is the 75th percentile. And I need, anytime you do a ribbon, if you don't do an alpha, it looks all solid, which I don't care for, but alpha 0.25 makes it transparent. Here we go, and now we're like, okay, here's our trends, and here's the like an interquartile range, an interquartile range, that is the middle 50%. This is a pretty solid graph. So I'm actually going to clean it up a little bit. I'm going to say year average subscriptions per person. Average subscriptions per person. The color is, I don't really need to say type. Kind of gets it all across. All right, and how do mobile and landline adoption differ between continents? And I can throw in a subtitle. I say, ribbon shows the 25th, 75th percentile range. You know, if I'm going to do the range, to probably do median. It's not going to change much. But anytime you think in terms like 25th percentile to 75th percentile, you're going to you probably want to use median rather than mean. It's just like we're using 25th, 50th, 75th percentile, kind of like a box plot. I could have done this as a box plot. I think it looks better as a line graph because it shows like a trend. Okay, so we learned a lot from this. We learned that like in Africa, largely landlines never took off. Mobile very much did. Sort of the Oceania, I think, only has 2 countries, Australia and New Zealand. So this is not quite as useful. But then we have like, yeah, and then we say Europe, and we have okay, so it's like we kind of see a similar, so Americas, then Asia. Europe had lots of landline use, even more than the Americas. And I'm suspecting that when we're looking at this, so continent is useful, but we're probably really looking at income levels, which is correlated with continent, but isn't the same. We're generally probably looking at like rich countries versus developing countries. And that's going to help with other things. So Americas, for example, includes US and Canada, but also includes Latin America, which is generally more middle-income countries, or South America, very more middle-income countries. Even Africa mixes together some rich countries with a lot of developing nations. So we might want to use something with income level instead. My favorite metric is from World Bank, which divides countries into like high income, upper middle income, lower income, middle income, and lower income based on gross national income. So we have GDP in here, but I'm going to use the categories, and to do that, I'm going to get it from WDI, the World Development. I've used this a lot. It's just so helpful, WDI, to get the, let's see, yeah, I'm going to get start end. I'm going to get it for the most recent year I can. 20. Can I get it for 20? I can never remember. Like, I just want actually, I'm going to do it for the middle now that I'm thinking of it. Heck, I'm going to do it for 2011 because that's what I'm going to do it for the middle. What is the middle? This is over 1990 to present day, so I'm going to do in the middle of this as tipple. What I'm going to do is say, okay, here's the country, here's the and here is the, in this case it's GNS, which is, I don't even know what this is. It doesn't matter because what I'm actually going for is there's a field called extra true. This is so helpful. Now I've got the 3-letter code. That's what I wanted. I've got the income level, so I can do count income and check this out and say, oh, okay, high income, lower middle income, upper middle income. Now I've got those values in there. And to take this, I can actually say, here we go. I can say select only code is ISO 3C. That's the one I want, the 3-letter code. And income, and check that. And now I'll say country incomes. Here we go. And now I can apply something similar to what I did before, where I'll just do this based on, here we go, look at this. I just copied basically all the same code. I can join it, and now I know, okay, Afghanistan is a low-income country. This is as of 2005, and I go from there. Instead of group by continent, I group by income. I change facet that to income, and change this by income categories. It's weird to me that there's an NA, is NA income. Not that weird, I guess it's happened. Okay, and the other thing that I need to do here is I'm going to say mutate income is FCT re-level. The problem is this is not in the order I was hoping for, so I can say re-level income to be, let's do descending. This just might, no, I'll do it ascending. Low income, lower middle income, upper middle income. I don't need to put the last one because it brings those to the front. And just by doing that reorder, I'm able to get a better visualization. So here we have our like summarize operation. I'm going to do a couple things. I'm going to change this to median. I want to be very clear what's going on. I want to say average subscriptions. And I'm going to pull this out. In fact, I'm going to bring in the filter. Sure. And then I'm going to call this summarize subscriptions. Because I'm doing the same thing. Oops, I did this backwards. I'm creating an anonymous function called summarize subscriptions. The way that I do that, I've done this before in the screencast. A dot, then a pipe says save this as, you can now use this as a step in a pipe. So I can put this right into summarize subscriptions. I want to have this ability so that I can do this whenever I need to. I can get the median, get the quartile ranges. I didn't care for like having to do this every time. Summarize subscriptions, there we go. So I grabbed the country incomes, I joined them in, I aggregated them, and now I can see the these levels. And actually, I think that this is a lot more meaningful than continent, which was only correlated with this. We can say, okay, low-income nations, basically the landlines never really took off, and lower middle income was higher, the upper middle income, and then high income. So in all of them, in all of those countries, the landlines are on average somewhat flat, and the is on average somewhat flat, and there's like this kind of S shape of like, oh, there's a mobile spike, and then it slows at some point. And really kind of notice, yeah, looking at it, I think I want to compare across continents, so I can like have this as by year income. I said continents, but I meant income. I want to take by year income. I want to visualize. I want to do a similar visualization, but I want to flip those two and maybe drop the ribbon. Because I kind of just want to see, aha. Yeah, this kind of like, I'm gonna change a couple things and so yeah, basically then see here is like landlines. Yeah, actually I like this because it shows the shape is fairly similar, but what the only thing that matters is when did the upward slope start, as well as where does it end up. That was a little bit harder to look at when I was compared the other way. I kind of like this median subscriptions per 100 people. So it's still true that, like, let's say that in low-income countries, it's fewer than 100 than one subscription per person, whereas in high-income countries that's not the case. Okay, so this is some things we can look in terms of how do we examine trends over time. I like this even more than the other. This gives more of a sense of uncertainty, and I think it would have been hard if I threw the ribbons into that one I just showed. This shows like there is some variation, but not a ton. This is like the 50% of the kind that falls within this range, and that's all. That's all pretty interesting, I think. Okay, so I'm going to take a look at some. So I definitely learned a lot in terms of like this is the big picture in terms of how mobile adoption differs between countries, shown this way or shown this way. Now, a question I get from Albolia is any idea why population GDP varies from mobile to landline? Is that right? That worries me. If I take a look at mobile and I did an inner join on landline, select entity, let's do entity code and year and total pop and GDP per cap by, I'm doing this is a quality check now by just code and year. I'm going to get these two columns and say phone, no, it was mobile landline. Yeah, and then I'll say filter total pop landline not equal to GDP, not equal to total pop mobile. And wow, they are different. That is frustrating. These are the ones where I'm not checking whether they're NA. That is so weird. That is so weird. If I did total pop mobile by total pop landline, the total population shouldn't be different. The good news is they're correlated. And if I do geom ab line, maybe they came from different sources. AB line puts one at the identity. All right, they are close but different, especially so like some little differences in this among small countries and then some large differences up here. I do not know. That is that's a bit of a weird one. Gapminder total population. Yeah, you think it would come from Gapminder. Let's take. Oh, we have the data here. Let's take a look. So we get code. No, this includes GDP per capita. Oh, so I don't have the raw data. So I don't know how the raw data was constructed that includes the Gapminder data. So I don't know. That's interesting. Okay, but the I didn't need to, in this case I didn't use the total population. How does the GDP per capita differ? If I do total, oh, right there. Notice I did it only on the colors. I did it only on the ones that didn't match. Surely there are others that match. It's hard to tell on this. Okay, and then I can also do it based on the GDP. Those are close. I don't know if they're ever different, but they're very close. Okay, I don't know what to do with that data. That's all right. I'm not using it hugely now, but okay. So back to the question. Let's see. We had all right. So Luke has a question of what are the meaningful models we can build without falling into the quote obvious conclusion that year is the main contributor to the subscription changes. So the answer I'd have there is we don't want to predict what is your, we don't want to just, like here it's not going to be useful to predict what is the landlines based on year. I'm not sure that I want to say like, if I'm going to do a predictive model, I'm not sure that I want to say, okay, what is the number of mobile phones in the year 2010 based on the year 2009? It's going to be pretty close. I don't think they even necessarily want to do it in the year 2010. I think what I want to do is I want to have some aggregation by country. I want to get this into like a couple of summary stats for each country, then understand what drives those. I don't know that I need to fit a predictive model. I've fit predictive models before when I'm inspired by like, oh, this is something where we might want to, we could try like forecasting the future, but I think like mostly the future is going to be, that's going to be a time series question, not a supervised regression question. What I really want to do is I want to say, what's a stat for countries that would be interested in? And the way that I think I would think about it would be something like this. I'm interested in, let's take another look at our grouped graph of our top country sizes. What are ways we could summarize stats for each country? And yeah, what we do. Oh. And okay, just look at this. Yeah. How can I summarize? What stats can I summarize from each other? Well, one I can say is when did it cross the 50%, the 50 per 100 people point. So if I say, for instance, here's horizontal line, y-intercept is 50, color is, I can do color black, but do LTY2, that's a dashed line. What I can say is when did the country cross over the 50% point? That kind of gets at the idea of, okay, when did mobile start surging? So I'm particularly interested in when did mobile cross 50%. It's very rare it's rare, not impossible that a country crosses 50 and drops back below. That could be a country that is going through like an economic challenges or something like that. But it's generally like relatively rare, and it's interesting to say, okay, when did a country cross 50%? So in the Americas, for instance, these are of the, let's say, top, do a few more, top 50 largest countries. A lot of them cross pretty close to each other. Africa has a lot of variation. Some countries crossed as early as 2000. Asia, pardon me, has a lot of variation. Some countries cross as early as 2000. Some countries cross only like 2015 or something like that. Yeah, I'll be interested at the time point where that happens. So we can look at that's what I'm pointing out here is we could look at what's the total increase of mobile. But for me, what's more interesting than what's the increase of you went from 0 to what number, that kind of just gets you what countries have many mobile subscriptions per person. I'm interested a little bit more in how it quote ahead of its time was it, and I might be interested, in this point that it crosses 50%. All right, so I've convinced myself that that's what I'm interested in. If you're interested in different, you do your own analysis. And what I can do is I can arrange by country and year, filter, I can do this, and then, no, I'm not going to do that because I want to include ones that never went above it. So I want to say filter, group by country, summarize year past 50 is min, year where, that brackets like where subscriptions greater than or equal to 50. Cool. What happens here is if a country never crosses it, then it ends up being infinity. That's a bit annoying. So I'm going to say, can I do NA? NA if is a useful function. Can I say NA if it's this value? Hey, look at that. I can say if it's infinity, make it an NA. It's missing. Yeah, so we can see there are some countries that never made it past 50%. So if I filter, for instance, of phones, filter, country is Marshall Islands. What we can see is, yeah, it's but it does look like, see, I don't like that there's missing data. I might want to say n years is n. How many years did they cover? Oh, no, as n distinct year. I want to say how many years did they cover? And so yeah, we can see Marshall only has 18 years. I might not need every year to get out a metric, but I might not be so thrilled that there's a bunch of missing data in the middle. So there's some that have like 27, some that have 26. I'm kind of just going to eyeball this and say, let's say if you have at least 25 years. So the question is like, when did it cross the 50% point? And there are some NAs that never crossed. So American Samoa never crossed, Equatorial Guinea never crossed. And also actually I'll do N, and I'll say peak year past 50 mobile. Peak mobile is max. Man, look at this. I'm doing this wrong. One problem that I have here is that I'm treating, I have a type going on here, and I actually need to pivot that. There's a bug here that I did here. I need to actually change this format to be pivot wider and say names from type, calls from subscriptions. That should be values from. And do I fill in a? I don't think I fill NAs. No, I shouldn't fill NAs. I shouldn't fill anything. So I can say, so this is wrong too. N mobile, sum not is in a mobile. That's the way I say how many non-missing values are there. And I change this to mobile. And I change this to peak mobile. And I change N mobile to this. And I keep working on it because I'm going to get it one day. There's my missing comma. And then change, there we go. Oh, oof, 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 oof. What is happening? Min, year past 50 mobile. What am I, oh, you know what happened is I did pivot wider, but I forgot that total pop and maybe even GDP per cap are different. Aha. So the story is when that happened, the pivot got messed up. I wasn't able to retransform the data back out. This looks like I think it'll work better. And now I can say, okay, we run this and we say Burundi, Ethiopia, Comoros, each of these countries, they peaked in the 50 at the level 50, and they crossed over at like 2014, 2010, etc. And then so I basically have a timeline of like, here's one stat of when did it cross the 50. And am I missing the United States? Where's the United States? Let's find out. Yeah, the United States crossed over to the point that the average person had half a mobile subscription in 2003. It was not the first. One thing I can sense from looking at this is like largely these first ones are rich countries. Let's bring in, we can bring in GDP. So what I can do on this is I'm working with 2005 as like GDP as my metric. So what I'm going to do is say WDI search. I can never remember the string. I search for GDP. I always need a little bit of GDP. I want per capita. I have this in the data, but I'd rather just. I'm worried because they're disagreements. I'm already pulling some data. I'm gonna just go ahead and pull it myself. So I'll say GDP per capita. There it is. GDP per capita. Where is this? I think is the one. Yeah, current international dollars. Sure, I'm going to go with this one. I'm actually going to do 2011 international dollars. A lot of people just standardize on that. All right. And let's see. I think this is how I do it. I give it a name, vector GDP equals. No valid country was requested. Oh, it's not a country, it's indicator. Hey, look at that, and now I have a GDP per capita. I'm going to call it GDP per capita. I'd forgotten how, yeah. So what I do is this is the code for get the GDP per capita in 2011 dollars per country. In 2005, 5. That's sure. Whenever we look at like things changing over time, we have to like make some choices. I went with 2005 because it's right there in the middle. What I can do now is I can say go by country and code, inner join income Here we go. What are the warnings? Oh, right, we expected that. That's because I did this min. Yeah. That's a neat little annotated column. So the story is now I can say like, okay, this is the year that it passed, 2016. Here's the GDP per capita. And I can take that and I say like countries I call this countries summarized. We kind of already saw this earlier when we did the aggregation, but this just might help a little bit. We can say GDP per capita by year past 50 mobile, geom point, and color equals continent. Throw in an ungroup, because anytime you group by 3 things in summarize, it's going to leave it grouped by 2 of those things. And oh yeah, anytime I use GDP per capita, I probably want on a log scale. Notice how nice and linear that makes it look. So this is like communicating that the richer a country, the earlier it passed 50 mobile subscriptions per 100 people. I think that does get a lot across. I'm going to polish this a little bit. I'll say GDP per capita in 2005, and I'll say scale labels equals dollar. That way, yep. And I'll say Y, year mobile subscriptions past 50 per 100 people. And you know, I can do a couple of things. I can fit models. Fit like a linear model. Yeah, I think the other thing I do is size it. Oof. All this population stuff, I can get it out of the tables, but I'm going to go ahead and do it from GDP. Just so I get all my stats from the same place, I'm going to say pop is WI search population. Why can't I find total population? Now I feel a little bit silly. Population total. Like, oh, here we go. Thank you. Thanks, Balia. Here we go. Now I'm going pop 2, and now I have some more stats. Oh, I need pop. Why do that? Because I want to size these by population. And I need oh, I didn't rerun this line. No, I did rerun this line. I did not rerun this one. Okay, so now this helps get some of like the attention onto the largest countries. So the idea is the richer country is, the earlier it passed it got into mobile. Makes a lot of sense. And we could do a little more here. I could add labels some of the countries, but I think it kind of gets this across. And you can see like, okay, Europe is mostly rich and mostly early to mobile, but even within Europe, yeah, the richer the country is, the faster move to mobile. That makes a lot of sense. Okay, I could aggregate other things too. I could say like peak landline, and that's max landline. And I'll do NARM equals true. This is the peak landline amount, not the peak year. That I would have to compute differently. And I'll change this to peak land. Yeah, so this is pretty cool. I think this is kind of neat. What this is showing is richer countries had higher peaks, had higher landline peaks. We did see that earlier, but it kind of gets across like, who's up here? Who's up here that's causing problems? Why is what contains a missing value? Not is in a GDP per capita. That's a little better. So you can see, like, yeah, lots of European countries peaked at like 40 to 70 people having a landline. Percent of people having a landline phone. Africa much lower. America's like largely somewhere in the middle. Here, I think, is the United States, the largest country in the Americas. And yeah, you can see, like, okay, there's a peak of landline. There's like another way of representing that shape. And yeah, it kind of looks like income drives a lot, but it's not just income. Even richer even as 2005, richer African nations didn't seem to peak didn't peak very high in terms of landline. Like, these are two richer African countries compared to, say, European countries. So there could be something to it kind of beyond wealth, in terms of, like, it could be. So what are those African countries? Let's take a quick look. Actually, I'll arrange by GDP per capita. Actually, I'll get these missing. Okay, so the GDP per capita. Yeah, the richest countries in Africa per capita look like Libya, Seychelles, Gabon, Botswana, but they still, some of them really don't have much landline use even at the peak. The poorer countries definitely don't, but even some of the richer ones don't. That's kind of what I'm seeing come across here. Even though Libya's GDP per capita puts it in the really in the range of high income countries. All right, and or at least upper middle income countries. Okay. This is 2017 dollars. It's so confusing. I say 2005 in 2017 dollars. I know it's a little bit confusing. And yeah, and then we see the point from Data Digest, which is some rich Asian countries never peaked at landline. Oh, okay, so they never. Oh, yes. So let's look at these Asian countries. Yes, it looks like if we look at just Asia, actually, this is a good idea. Let's facet this by continent. You don't really need the legend at this point. And heck, I'm gonna leave the colors because they look neat, but I'm gonna drop the legend. One thing we can see is that in Europe, it was kind of very clustered. It's like in Europe, landlines was something that everyone would get, and the richer countries, the more people would have a landline. Sort of true in the Americas too. Not nearly as true in Asia, where some countries that were very rich never really peaked in landlines, peaking at like 10 or 20. Yeah, Africa, as I noted, is also a bit more of a complicated relationship. Why are there this many countries in Oceania? Okay, I think that I'm making a mistake. Let's see something. Nope, I'm wrong. It's just it just is counting in. Okay, yeah. Okay, yes. It is counted like French Polynesia and a couple others as Oceania. I think Gapminder only counts 2 countries, but yeah, all right, Fiji, etc. All right, yeah, I described what I was saying earlier about how few countries are in Oceania. So yeah, it's looking like Yeah, and in some continents, there's a close relationship between GDP per capita and whether you peak the landline. In some, there's much less so. You know what this is telling me? I want a animated choropleth. We're gonna have a blast doing this next thing. Okay, I think I should have just enough time. Okay, we've done this. We've done this before. If I do map data of world, to remind myself, what does the data look like as tibble? Okay, and there's some data in here. It's super annoying. I do this sometimes. I have to do this every time I make a map. Is we need to match this to like maps ISO 3166. We have to like join this data in. There's like a few ways to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and say, right, it's honestly, every single time it's annoying. Maybe I missed something. I need to get this A3 in there, and it's in the form of a regex. So let me think through this quickly. Yes, what I'm going to need to do is say ISO maps, ISO 3166, and say as tibble, sure. And do a regex, and bring in the fuzzy join package. And this is my little lightning round at the end. Regex left join, where I join the region on the map to the region to the map name. This means that I picked I did region, but I did that backwards. It's actually map name to region. Oh, but you notice this is the regex. Look at me, I'm doing it backwards. Regex left join is saying let's compare all of these and keep the ones that match, where the right one matches the regex. Yeah, so I find it very frustrating, but I need to get this A3 in. So I'll call this world map because now I can actually. But now that I have that, I can left join it on, let's say, not all the data, but just the mobile data. And by code equals A3. I did that backwards. A3 equals code. Fuzzy join is a package. It's actually one that I maintain that is good at take a look at this maps ISO. This table has a regular expression in the map name for some things, like where's an example? There are examples. Yeah, here's like an example where it actually has like a regular expression that matches it to the map, and I have to apply that regex. So yeah, like here it's like UK, and then it kind of has this little puzzle on this. But the story is that like you have to match these two. It's actually, I think it's frustrating, and I give a lot to just have this data joined together with the country code and everything. But now that I have this world map and I have it joined by mobile. What I could do is, for example, imagine I want to get one particular year. I'm going to do an animation. But if I want to just get like the year 2000, what I could do is say, to remember myself how it works. It's lat, long, geom, polygon, group is group, and fill is subscriptions. Call it choropleth because I'm filling in. Look at me. I got long and lat mixed up. Makes sense. Okay, yes, long is the long ones. These are the ones that go vertically. And I throw in a, does this work? This like works like a quarter of the time, and sometimes I get the strangest error. There's that, my friend, the frustrating error. I've never been able to figure out how to fix that, the way this kind of zips back and forth. So I'm going to go ahead and just say chord fixed 2 means I want 2. Yeah, this looks good enough. And I'm also going to say theme map, which comes from GG themes theme map. So this is like kind of fine. Maybe I want like 1.8. Get it a little bit. No, I actually think I wanted like 2.2. Get it a little bit wider. Actually, am I doing this backwards? Yeah, that was what I meant to do. I might do a couple other things to mess with this. I might say scale, fill, continuous. Actually, like scale fill. My favorite is scale fill gradient 2, and do like high is red, low is so for something like this, maybe low is blue, high is red, and midpoint is. Am I doing? Yeah, is like is I don't know, 20. This is in 1 year. Where was their mobile adoption? And the answer is okay. In the year 2000, I'll make it 20. I'll make it 30. In the year 2000, the a lot of it was in it was mostly in Europe. So we are going to make an animation, and what I'll do is I'll do library GG animate, and I will move the year, and instead what I'm going to do is say transition manual year. Let me filter for year less than or equal to make this a little bit faster while I'm drafting it. Year less than or equal to 5. Within 1994. Let's get only the first 5 years. While I'm waiting for it, it's taking a second. While I'm waiting for it, I can go ahead and say fill is. That's not very impressive because it's only a couple of years. Okay, what I'll do is let's drop it. Let's see how it looks. Takes a minute to set it up, but what I'm doing is transition manual year, says I want the year to turn into a frame, to be like each of these is 1 year. It's taking its time. It's got 2 million observations. It's going to take a minute. And remember, so everything starts at 0. Weird. There's some kind of. This is right now. It's still just doing the 5-year version. Here we go. All right, we're rendering now. Let's see how it looks. I'm not going to have time to polish this and make it look really good, but you folks know that I like ending with an animated core clef if I have data that naturally fits to it. I just want to show how we go about it in 10 minutes. Here we go. Here we go. All right. Up, look, it's going up in some places, and it goes up a lot more. Look at that. Yes, it kind of fills in. One thing, the splotches, the gray splotches are missing years. That's not fantastic, but the gray splotches in Africa, that's not really helping our case. I would probably next time do the problem is I guess there's not a lot I can do with the missing points. Because they're missing some years, not others. All right. I guess I could make them 0 because they probably are 0. I can also, ideally I'd like to add the title, and I forget how to do this every single time. Let me see if there's any examples. GG animate frame in title. Every time I forget. Oh, this is. Year, here we go. Frame time. This is transition manual. I have a feeling I'm going to do it and I'm going to get it wrong, and then it's going to be confusing. Wow, I'm sorry. maybe I'll tweet later how to do it, or someone else can. I'm nervous just because it takes like 2 minutes to render. I'm gonna be annoyed by it. All right. So there's a really good suggestion. So yeah, watch this. Check this. Look at how it's kind of spread across the world. But I think a really key thing is like maps are exciting, but and interesting a lot. But there's not much we're learning from the map that we didn't learn from this visualization. I think this is probably and I think we're learning a little bit more because we understand now landlines as well. This kind of gets across a lot of the story in terms of adoption across countries, in terms of like mobile rapid growth and landline a peak and decline, or like or kind of never really taking off. I think that's pretty interesting. The last thing I would actually do here is I would take the income and FCT rev it so that it that's reversing it, so that it puts the labels in the opposite order. Why? Because they're on top here. And I want to say high income, upper middle income, low income. This kind of lines them up a little bit better. All right, what did we do today? We combined the mobile and landline data so that we could visualize one country at a time. That already got us into the mood for thinking like, okay, what moment did mobile start taking off, and maybe where did it peak? And then we did some summarizing where we said what's the what does it look like within each continent? And that got us a sense of, okay, it does differ between continents, but I bet the real story is in income levels. That's why we used WDI package to pull in some income category, GDP per capita, and a population from one year that we picked from the middle of the range. And from then on, we were asking questions around like, what's the average income? And the two ways we have to visualize that: one, kind of letting each of these incomes have its own facet. One, my favorite visualization so far here is this one. It's a very simple visualization, but does get the idea really across. And we checked it, did a little bit of data quality checking, where we found that in fact the population, the total pop mobile and the total pop landline are don't match, don't always match. And then we did a little bit of summarizing within countries. So what we did is we looked at like, we had like this kind of graph, we looked at all of them, but then we did some summaries where we said, when did they pass 50? And we really can kind of see, okay, richer countries passed the 50% point earlier. Makes sense. It also looks like there are some differences in terms like Europe was got onto mobile a little faster than equally rich countries in other continents. So there's some geography as well, for sure. And yeah, we also look at like where did the landline peak? A little bit similar. That there's mostly about income, but there's also some role played by geography. There's basically no European nations that never got onto landline, even the relatively poor ones. Whereas there are some relatively rich African nations where landlines never took off and instead kind of jumped to mobile. So this is a story really about, yeah, jumping to mobile is a big part. And finally, we built an animated choropleth, which is always a blast. And we learned to do this little situation with ISO 3166 to get the country codes in and so on. Okay, all right, that's it for today. We looked at all these. I'm gonna do this where I actually say like mobile versus landline adoption. There's something I like to do where actually I'll go ahead and if you're interested in this, what you can do, you can read it yourself on GitHub. I can say phone adoption, phone history, and then I'll commit it. It just quit. I won't commit it. That's charming. But yeah, this was it for the this is it for I'll commit it after done for this analysis, and I hope you had I remember to subscribe to the YouTube channel. I hope you had a great time. I certainly did. I'll see you next week.